Hey everybody, Mike Miller with the Herald Times, columnist Jeremy Price, coming to you from Des Moines, the Wells Fargo Arena. Actually, we're going to be trading in the Wells Fargo Arena for the Wells Fargo Center because we're off to Philadelphia in the Sweet 16.
Is that what it's called now?
Wells Fargo Center.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it used to be...
It'll always be the Spectrum to me.
I think it was like Core State Center at one point, and it doesn't matter. We're just going to go there and watch basketball because Indiana's going to continue playing basketball this year after beating Kentucky 73-67 here in the second round. Wow, where to start? I have no idea where to start. The rivalry renewed, at least temporarily, and I'll tell you what, we both kind of came into this game shaking our heads, rubbing our chins a little bit, just kind of trying to figure out what the heck Kentucky was thinking yesterday. So maybe we'll start there. We may have mentioned this actually on yesterday's ScoopTalk.
Yes, we did.
Kentucky players, they were kind of dismissive of Indiana, and it was actually kind of funny. I went into the locker room after the game, asked a couple guys, and they were like, yeah, we went back and we were scrolling through Twitter, and we saw that. We saw what they were saying about Yogi Ferrell. We saw what they were saying about us as a team, how they didn't know anything. They weren't familiar with our resume, our record, what our style of play. I mean, Isaiah Briscoe said he didn't even know that Indiana shot many threes. Like he said, I don't know anything about them. I don't, whatever. That kind of poked the bear a little bit.
It did.
And Indiana came out and despite foul trouble, a shortened bench, despite Yogi Ferrell kind of having to take a half to really feel his way into this game and really find a different point of attack, despite Indiana really turning to Troy Williams to run the point, despite a number of things, Indiana came out with a huge victory. There's so many things you could say about this victory. Let's just start saying them. Jeremy, what immediate takeaways after this huge win over Kentucky?
Well, I think the big thing to me is, like you said, it's not so much that what Kentucky said really stirred up Indiana, because I don't think it needed to. I think Indiana had plenty of motivation. But the way that Kentucky played was basically a reflection of that, in the sense that they were very much a one-on-one, do-it-yourself thing kind of team tonight. Or maybe they just weren't a team tonight. Maybe that's the better way of looking at it.
I don't think they've been a great team. I mean, I think they're a great collection of players. I'm not sure you find a whole lot.
And they've meshed better in recent weeks, which is why they've had success.
Yeah.
But that meshing wasn't there tonight. And Indiana did have the deeper, better, more complete team, the team that was able to overcome all the obstacles that you sort of referred to, whether it was a slow start, Troy Williams, a little bit of good, a little bit of bad. Thomas Bryant, early foul trouble. Robert Johnson rolls the ankle. Juwan Morgan pops out the shoulder. Any litany of things that you could go down and might think would be devastating for Indiana in this game. And just the next man up, plug them in, keep rolling along.
I just thought they were a more connected team altogether, and I thought that coming into this game, and I think it played out that way when you look at how their backs are up against it in a number of different ways, and they continue to push. Just the resiliency and the confidence to lean on freshmen like they have down the stretch. And again today, Thomas Bryant, he earned his place in Indiana lore today. Almost single-handedly helped beat Indiana down the stretch. What do you have? 17 of his 19 in the second half, I think.
Yes.
What we count 12 in the final 5 minutes.
Yep.
Just the ability for him to kind of will Indiana on his own at some certain points to kind of take control, do what was given, and actually bounce back a little bit from some of his own shortcomings at the free throw line. Yeah,
obviously, what we'll remember most about this game is Thomas Bryant at the free throw line in that last minute where he was 2 of 4 before going to the line with 10 seconds left, and then made those last two-point game to close it out, not give Kentucky that opportunity to tie or take the lead. Which is, just huge for a freshman to step up in that pressure situation, especially when you've missed 2 already. You might start to be feeling it. It might start to be creeping into the back of your head that you're missing those free throws, and knocked them down, no problem. And in a lot of ways, Thomas Bryant was just kind of the last guy, and so that left a lasting impression. But he was just the last guy of many that stepped up at various points in this game.
And we'll stick with his classmate OG Anunoby, who came through. I mean, you can look at the box score. I think 2 of his biggest plays were probably, he had 3 blocks, but 2 of them were absolutely huge. I mean, he had one in the final few seconds of the first half. I think Jamal Murray was going for 3, and he just came out of nowhere. I mean, he just unfurled his arm, and it just went 50 yards and found the ball and swatted away. And that was huge because Indiana had a 33-32 lead at halftime. and that was just absolutely huge. Being able to take that, even though it was small, even just being able to have that kind of advantage to go into the locker room. We see it a million times. Teams hit a big shot right before the half, and they generate some semblance of momentum. OG Anunoby would not let that happen. There was another huge block down the stretch. Was it a Ulis 3-point attempt? It was down in the final few minutes.
I think it was a Ulis. I can't remember if it was Ulis or Murray, but
and I think that just goes right there. I mean, Ulis and Murray alone, I think what they combined for
that was pretty much a two-man show.
It was 43 points, but they took 38 shots. 38 attempts to actually get there. So, by and large, they did a pretty good job on those two, even though they got their points. And then the rest of them, I don't really know what to say. I kind of question the way Kentucky used some of their big guys at certain points, too. I mean, it was kind of weird. And then Indiana just...
Well, their big guys weren't aggressive enough.
Yeah.
Put simply, I mean, they would get the ball into Scow, and he just wasn't aggressive, and it didn't go hard enough at guys. He was just a little too tentative for the most part, and let Indiana dictate the game, basically. And they got away from going in there because it wasn't working. And Poythress was in foul trouble.
Poythress, too. And they went to Poythress often early, and I would credit Colin Hartman, too, with standing tall on the defensive end. That's obviously not a great matchup for him physically, but they went to Poythress often early, went low early quite often, and there was Colin Hartman to kind of stem that defensively.
Let me get back to OG for just a second, because I thought he was the hero of the first half for Indiana, because the way he came off the bench, he was collecting, seemed like every loose ball, got some steals, cleaned up offensive rebounds, just did a million little things. And then in the second half, he twisted that ankle. And at that point, Robert Johnson's already gone.
Yeah.
Things are going south, and you're thinking, this is the last guy Indiana can afford to lose. And fortunately, he's able to just kind of walk it off, tighten up the laces, get back out there, and hit a monster three. It was tied 50-50. Thomas Bryant got a three-point play, and then OG hits a huge three in the corner off the dish from Troy Williams.
I would give credit to Troy, too. We talked about that at the time, and Troy was kind of driving in, I don't want to say recklessly necessarily, but it was one of those classic Troy drives where there is just a mountain of men in front of him, and you're wondering, oh, God, is he actually going to climb this mountain? And somehow he had an eye like right here in his head and just saw...
Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, we both saw him. He just put his head down and went. He never looked that direction.
Not at all.
I mean, I didn't think he even knew OG was out there.
Yeah.
I thought this was a mad dash straight to the basket, and oh boy, what comes next? And all of a sudden he whips that ball out there, and wow.
We talked about, I mean, there was some good and some bad, but, they did lean on Troy a little bit more to really initiate and run stuff from up top. And at times, I think that led to a lot of one-on-one, which was kind of surprising early. A lot more one-on-one than we've seen early in games for this team. And it didn't always work well. I mean, there were some times when Troy's, frankly, just throwing the ball at the rim and hoping for something good to happen. And at times early, it looked like hero ball, and that was very concerning against this Kentucky team. It's not the way to win. Hero ball very, very rarely works in any situation, especially against a team like Kentucky. And so it took some time, really, for Yogi Ferrell to really find his way in this game. The threes weren't falling for Indiana early. I think they had, first half, 3 of 11 to start, and really didn't get better the rest of the day. They had the threes they got the rest of the way. I think they only had 3 the rest of the way. They were big ones. But I think Yogi did a nice job of adjusting when the openings came. He seemed to concentrate a lot more on taking the smallest openings and attacking a little bit more than really trying to get that shot in gear.
Yeah, and it seemed like you talked about sort of Kentucky poking the bear. It seemed like it took most of that first half, but finally Yogi, if he didn't get the message from the quotes, he got the message during the game as Tyler Ulis was putting on a bit of a show, and it was kind of like Yogi got mad. And once Yogi got mad and started attacking and decided that he was going to dictate the game instead of have the game dictated to him, things turned around. And a little bit of credit to Troy, even though the way he handled the ball and the way he attacked the basket wasn't the best idea at the beginning. What it did is it certainly made the Kentucky defense very aware.
Yeah.
And then once Yogi started attacking, you had Yogi and Troy both attacking, and that started to open up the floor for other guys. And even though the three-point shots weren't going down, Indiana was getting better looks and eventually better ball movement. And eventually it kind of settled in and got away from that dribble approach.
This is getting interesting. I mean, we say that every Scoop Talk all year long, but this team's going back to the Sweet 16, first time since 2013, third time under Tom Crean. Headed to Philadelphia this week where they'll face, we're shooting this right now, North Carolina and Providence are in the second half of their game. They'll get the winner of that one in Philly on Friday evening. I'm sure we'll get a time, I guess, later tonight.
I'm guessing late, most of
by the time you probably are watching this, you'll know that. But Interesting matchups on both sides, but for Indiana's sake, first of all, you hope they get a little healthy because they get dangerously thin on that bench today with both Rob Johnson going down and Juwan Morgan aggravating that shoulder injury. Both of which injuries, they don't appear to be too terribly serious. At least there's a lot of more optimism than we've heard at any other point after a game where Tom Crean says basically, I expect both of them to be back next week. They have 4 or 5 days to kind of get at it and get back into swinging things physically. What are some of the other keys here, Jeremy, as Indiana really heads into they're making a run here. They're poised to potentially make a run in this tournament.
I think the biggest thing is this team's playing with so much confidence and belief. Even when the shots aren't going down, they believe they're going to find a way to win, that somebody's going to step up and make a play, make a shot, make a defensive play. And that's the biggest turnaround from this team is while the offense is the big thing, tonight the defense was good and good enough and made plays when it needed to make plays, whether it was Anunoby's block. There was one time I think Marcus Lee got the ball down on the block and Yogi Ferrell was on him and stripped him, got the turnover. Just little plays here and there that keep the momentum in their favor. And that ability to make those little plays, that confidence that this team has. And then the other thing is Colin Hartman was talking in the locker room about, he's just never been on a team that is as close-knit and as tight and sort of unified as this team is, that there's just sort of a brotherhood with this group, that they've just got something different going on with them, and that can carry you a long way this time of year.
What is that old quote, that old thing, fire sharpens steel or something like that, or I don't know.
Iron sharpens iron?
Iron sharpens, I don't know, something like that. I thought it was fire. Something like, is something made in fire? I don't know.
Anyway,
let's talk about cheesesteaks because we're going to go get some in Philly this week. That's another Scoop Talk. We'll talk cheesesteaks and another Scoop Talk this week. We got a few days to preview Indiana's trip east. Again, they'll play Friday against the winner of North Carolina Providence. You probably already know who they're playing by the time you watch this, so we're just going to sign off, and we'll catch you back in Bloomington this week, and we'll see you in Philly later on.
All right.
Later.
See ya.